Hey everyone, me Kevin here. So the Wall Street Journal has an exclusive article out about the Tesla board's search for a new CEO. And in this video, I want to break down whether we think that's fake news, whether it was once true and no longer is, or what's going on. Tesla stock was initially down about 4% in the overnight markets after this news broke just a bit ago. Now it's recovered to down about 1.3% in the overnight. After we touch on my thoughts on this, I'd also like to just delve into the Waymo Toyota partnership and also talk a little bit about Zoox. So I figure we could have sort of an open dialogue about all of this together. That said, I'd like to start with that Wall Street Journal article and get a time frame reference for when this sort of news was discussed or when this development was discussed, and whether we think it's just pure fake news or fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD, or what it is. Is this just sort of another lamestream media attack on Tesla? Well, let's take a look at the article and share some commentary on it. I've already gone through and highlighted it just to make it a little bit easier. So here's the piece, and the title of the piece is Tesla Board Opened Search for CEO to Succeed Musk. Now, initially at the title here, it implies that it's still going on, but there's also the potential that they had once and no longer are searching for a new CEO. And so when we look at the context of the article, we see here board members reached out to several executive search firms to work on a formal process for finding Tesla's next chief executive, according to people familiar with discussions. And so it sounds like the board, at least per the Wall Street Journal, quote unquote, got serious about looking for an Elon Musk replacement, mostly because tensions had been mounting at the company, and then separately, sales and profits were deteriorating and Musk was spending too much time in Washington. Now, they don't actually talk about what these tensions are, but I think some tensions that are worth talking about would be the tensions that were reported by The Information, as well as, and I know a lot of people don't like them, but Reuters, regarding the Model 2 rumors. See, a year and a half ago, Tesla told us that, there would be future lower cost vehicles. And my opinion for the last year and a half has been that these lower cost vehicles are unlikely to be new form factors. They're likely to just be cheaper existing models, whether they'd be smaller battery packs or whatever. And so far, it seems like that's actually exactly what's going to end up happening, that the lower cost models will just be cheaper form factors. And we can see that in the company's last earnings call as well. I'll save you the time on that. But if you listen to the beginning of the earnings call and towards the end of the earnings call, because they were asked about the new models twice, they talk about how new models will have a similar form factor and arrive in the form of a lower cost in order to sort of fulfill their existing assembly line capability of providing more demand or more supply, right? After all, the current lines we have at Tesla could support somewhere around 3 million vehicles per year. Obviously, we only have demand at the moment for somewhere around 1.8 to 1.9 million per year, suggesting there's room to utilize the existing form factors in a different way and more so, right? And so The Information had reported that there was tension between the board members about launching a lower cost vehicle, that some board members wanted a pure play Model 2 cheaper vehicle, and you ended up having Elon Musk say, no, the only cheaper vehicle we're going to do is a Robotaxi vehicle. Now, remember at previous events like the Robotaxi event or otherwise, Elon Musk has regularly told us that it does not make sense to do a $25,000 car that is not fully autonomous. So I believe when they're talking about tensions mounting at the company, they're talking about these tensions between board members who want a lower cost, different model vehicle, and Elon Musk, who says, no, we will only do a fully autonomous vehicle. And when you sort of combine these, I think what you're finding is, based on the last earnings call, we've come to almost a conclusion or a consensus. So when it comes to these tensions, I actually think the board and Elon may have resolved their problems. And what they may have decided is, hey, why don't we just do more stripped down vehicles and utilize the production capabilities that we have? And fine, maybe we won't do a Model 2, but we'll do like a Model 2.5, right? A stripped down Model 3. And maybe the board was able to convince Elon to do that because the last earnings call gave us the most color about cheaper vehicles of a different, of a same form factor, but using those assembly lines. So take a look at, I'll actually just, because I think it's relevant, let me jump to that section in the earnings call because I actually have it handy right here. So if you see right here, where the CFO gets asked about it, oops, I jumped over to the Starbucks earnings page I was looking at earlier, my bad. There we go. There, click the highlighter. Okay, all I will say is it's important to emphasize that, as we've said all along, the full utilization of our factories is the primary goal for these new products. And so flexibility of what we can do within the form factor and design is really limited to what we could do with our existing lines rather than building new lines. But we've been targeting lower cost ownership, with the monthly payment being the biggest differentiator. So to me, Tesla has always had this capability of being like the new age Toyota, where you could get to 20 million vehicles per year. And when you get to, maybe 20 million vehicles per year, you end up getting to this mass adoption of consumers, and the network effects and the benefits of miles on self-driving all compound into more of a moat for Tesla, right? So that, I think, is a very important thing. And I think that might be a compromise on these sort of tensions that they're talking about here in the Wall Street Journal. But I think some of those may have been resolved now. Then sales and profits deteriorating. Obviously, that could also be resolved by lower cost vehicles and getting more volume moving. But then also this argument about Musk spending too much of his time in Washington. And so remember, before the last earnings that we got with Tesla, we actually had an update on their website that there would be a company update released with this earnings set. And that company update seems to have been this from Elon Musk right here. He says, quote, "And I think starting probably next month in May, my time allocation to Doge will drop significantly. I'll have to continue doing it for, I think, probably the remainder of the president's term, just to make sure waste and fraud that we stopped doesn't come roaring back, which will do if it has its chance. So I think I'll continue to spend a day or two per week on government matters for as long as the president would like me to do so, and as long as it is useful. But starting next month, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla, and now that the major work of establishing Doge is done." Okay, so in other words, this is Elon, I think, basically providing his mea culpa. In fact, earlier today, there was news, I would guess in anticipation of this Wall Street Journal article. Keep in mind, like, most people, when they have an article written about them in like the Wall Street Journal or whatever, they know it's coming. And earlier today, we actually had news come out that Elon Musk is no longer working from the White House, almost like he gave up his office. So I think Elon's already sort of anticipating this news and is like, nope, that's not a problem anymore. I don't even work at the White House anymore. It's fake news. But the Wall Street Journal probably was correct. Now, this is my opinion, but it's my opinion that the board probably did start a search for a new CEO, but Elon said, look, how about we compromise on doing more stripped down vehicles, and I'll step back from Doge. We don't need to replace me as CEO. That's my guess about what happened here. So in other words, this information from the Wall Street Journal probably was true, but it probably is no longer true. So I would expect Elon and the Tesla team to come out and say something like, hey, no, we're not going to replace me as the CEO. This is not happening. This is fake news. I'm staying the CEO. So I don't actually think Elon is going anywhere. But I'm not going to go as far as calling this article fake news, because honestly, it probably was true at the time. And it's a way of signaling that the board has actually gotten kind of pissed with Elon not spending enough time with Tesla. And frankly, that's sort of the job of the board, to keep the CEO aligned. As you know, we just went through our PCAOB audit for House Hack, and it's really intense. And it's good because, now you have like really big auditing companies going through and asking, questions about everything from like security deposits to leases or whatever. But they also ask about boards. Like, is the board doing their job? Is the board making sure Kevin's doing his job and the staff is doing their job? This is all part of corporate governance, and it's a good thing. I mean, you all know we've got our fundraise going over at househack.com. I don't have to tell you more about that. But anyway, so here, listen to this. The board narrowed its focus to a major search firm, according to people with discussions. The current status of the succession planning couldn't be determined. In other words, like that maybe they were doing that, but they no longer are. It's also unclear if Musk himself, a Tesla board member, was aware of the effort at the time. Now, this is interesting because it sort of implies that Elon may not have even been aware that the board hired a, executive replacement firm. I find that very interesting because it really shows you that even inside of Tesla, the folks at Tesla have been getting pissed off with Elon. Now, this article, we're going to keep going through this article. But I do want to mention that some of the things that happen when you have a distracted CEO, even just for a while, and you don't listen, if you're going to be distracted, Elon, it's okay to step away from the CEO role, right? I would rather have a different CEO that's not distracted than have a distracted CEO. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, you could even use an interim CEO if you're going to be gone for 3 months at Doge or whatever. Fine, have an interim CEO, right? But to keep the CEO hat, so to speak, like Elon likes wearing many hats, and be at Doge, that I think is misaligned. But I don't think that's a problem anymore because he's coming back. But what happens when you have a distracted CEO and no interim CEO is things like this gain power. Now, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Waymo's strategy for self-driving vehicles. I prefer the vision-based strategy of Tesla. But you have to remember, robotaxis are going to be a competitive environment. Robotaxis are not just going to be Elon and done. So the slower Tesla is at innovating, the more time you have for the Zookses of the world, which is Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is like the quiet Elon Musk. He's landing reusable rockets. He's trying to do, Starlink competition. He's doing autonomous vehicle competition by having acquired this brand called Zooks. This was actually a video I filmed in Vegas not that long ago with Lauren. And we were just driving around and, sure enough, there's a self-driving Zooks vehicle. But in addition to that, you actually have billboards around Vegas pitching these autonomous vehicles and autonomous ride-sharing platforms. And when you look at the apps, like the Waymo app, it actually has a really good review in the App Store. It's only available in certain locations, but the app actually has really good reviews. This was a picture of Lauren and I, by the way, in Vegas. Let's go. What's up, Lauren? Anyway, so it was nice to get away for a night. I flew us. It was my first time flying into Harry Reid. But anyway, so I find this interesting because Toyota, one thing that Toyota really has going for it is its ability to mass produce. But Toyota, in my opinion, has made a large mistake in discrediting electric vehicle technology and favoring the hybrid model. Although some will say more recently that hybrids have been a little bit more in favor, but they've also been very anti-autonomy. So this is a really interesting strategy where you could potentially have Toyota mass produce Waymos at a cheaper price. Elon Musk, for example, in his last earnings call argues, Waymos are bad because they cost way more than a Tesla. But if Toyota can, slap together $19,000, Corollas, and Waymo slaps on its sensors, well, now, and mind you, Google doesn't sell for a rich multiple at all. So they could easily raise money or via their valuation on the stock market. So they're not so worried about the cost. But beyond that, Waymo, has this established platform already with excellent reviews. It just makes you realize there's more competition, right? And that competition is coming. Look at this other picture I found. A robotaxi from the future made for riders of today. This is Jeff Bezos breathing down Elon's neck. So the Robotaxi competition is coming. They might not be the system that we love and know at Tesla. Even I've finally, after 8 years of having the full self-driving technology at Teslas, I have finally convinced Lauren to love FSD, and she loves it, right? It's a fantastic product for the user. And this is why I've always been a big fan of, let's get a Model 2, let's get cheaper vehicles, let's get more FSD in more people's hands. And I'm actually happy that the board is sort of pressuring Elon to do that, because the competition is coming. That self-driving moat that Tesla has, it shrinks every single year. And I think that's why this article is so pressing, where you have, again, even though it's probably not true anymore, the board's probably done searching for a new CEO, again, because in the earnings call, we heard Elon say via his company update, where, I'm going to step back from Doge. Even though this is probably not true anymore, so in other words, it once was and no longer is, even though everybody's probably just going to call it fake news, I do think it's impressive to see that you actually had the board potentially trying to go behind Elon's back because they're tired of Elon being distracted. And maybe this is a wake-up call. See, here you have a quote: some directors, including Tesla co-founder J.B. Straubel, have been meeting with major investors to reassure them that the company is in good hands. And then, they show the share price deterioration. Here's when Doge was created on the left, or when Musk was chosen for Doge. Here's when the Doge executive order came into place. And then, of course, you've had quite a bit of, stock market pain since then. I think a lot of this was just pre-pricing in Q1, and that's actually why the stock moved up after Q1, because we pre-priced in a lot of that. But, there's a lot of talk about how Elon, Tesla is just one of 5 businesses he oversees, and he's got these 20 different executives reporting to him. But somewhere else in this article, I was reading it towards the bottom of it, they actually talk about how Elon would show up to meetings and not be prepared for the meetings. Like, he just wasn't aware of what was going on at Tesla. Here it is. One board member told people that sometimes Musk wasn't well prepared and that he needs to be briefed more about what is happening with Tesla. The board members continued to say they believed Musk's proximity to Trump and the White House would benefit the company over the long term. But obviously, in other parts of the article, they talk about how they realize it's damaged the company in the short term. So, short-term downside, but probably longer-term upside. I don't think that anything about this article is really bad. I actually think this is fantastic, because what it does is it forces Elon to prove, no, I will dedicate more time to Tesla. So to me, this is great. And this is, if you are a Tesla investor, or you want to be a Tesla investor or whatever, I think this is very, very important, because again, that Robotaxi moat is fading, not just with Zoox or with the Waymo expansion of the Waymo app, but also with the Chinese competition. And then, of course, the other entrants coming into electric vehicles or self-driving as well. And so while I think Tesla still has a good lead, I think now is the time to triple down on milking that lead, like own that lead and maximize that lead and make sure that Robotaxi launch in Austin, Texas goes really, really well. Because if it doesn't, it's going to look embarrassing if in Austin, Texas, the Zooxes and Waymos are running over Teslas and they're a way better service. We need a 5-star app review on the Tesla Robotaxi app, so to speak, right? Again, you go look in the App Store and you download the Waymo app. It's really impressive how many reviews it has. Now, who knows? Maybe they're all fake news and they're anti, Tesla or whatever. But I thought it was very interesting, and I'll pull it up here for you in just a moment. But if you go to the App Store, you'll actually see the following. Look at this. 5-star review. I think it's like 4.9 or 4.8 rounded up, but 100,000 reviews. Number 22 in travel. I mean, this is actually a really impressive app. iPhone, iPad, car will wait 5 minutes, ready at pickup, unlock with the app at arrival, unlock car. Like, this is where I worry, like, is Elon potentially, because of his distractions, falling a little bit behind and letting this competition get ahead? Be driven, 10 minutes to drop it, whatever, right? Okay, who knows? Now, I want to take a look at some of your comments. Quick pitch, obviously, for my little baby of a company. House hack, diversify from rich stock market valuations, diversify away from most tariff risk, diversify away from long-term treasury risks, and earn a 5% annual yield until your investment converts. And then diversify away from frothy VC AI valuations and diversify into American real estate. So if you want to get into discounted fixer uppers with what we're doing in the systems we're building at HouseHack, with the future plans that we have for HouseHack, go check it out at househack.com. It's open to non-accredited investors as well. Okay, I want to see what some of your comments are, and then we can also keep an eye on just sort of what Tesla's doing in the overnight hours. It looks like right now Tesla in the overnights is sitting at negative 1.6% at the moment. So everything college football says, do you think Elon will publicly confirm this is false? Yeah, I actually do. I think Elon will publicly come out and say something like that's fake news. However, I do think it was true at the time. And so you have to be really careful when people call things fake news. You have to keep in mind they know the news is going to write the story and they have the benefit of time. So the news may have been true, but it may no longer be true, right? So it's something to keep in mind. The American one here says Robotaxi is going to put Tesla at $2,600 a share in 5 years. Nice. Okay, let's see here. No plans to lower the minimum for HouseHack right now. We think it's reasonable for the yield that's being offered as well. And there's obviously work involved in making sure you get your yield payment. For example, when you invest in HouseHack, we've got to set up your recurring payment. So you get your 5% because you get on a monthly basis your disbursement, right? Let's see here. Let's see. Waymo is a reality, writes Sean here. Okay. Can you tell me why Waymos are just circling in my neighborhood all the time? Okay. Interesting. Let's see here. Yeah. Waymo's only available in certain areas right now. And that's probably honestly how the Tesla Robotaxis will expand as well. Sean here says Robotaxi mode is fictitious. There is no Tesla Robotaxi. I mean, I would say that their FSD product has a massive moat. I mean, you just don't have an alternative product like that in the market right now. So that's something to keep in mind. Jeff says, truth. Dark Emperor says, pre-recorded live. No, I'm live right now. Ketamine Kid doesn't care because he knows it's game over, says Rio. Tamu says, is that like a word twist on Timu? Tesla to $75. Mark my words. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Mark here says, Woolaup says, FSD is good, but I like to drive also. Actually, sometimes I'll drive my Cybertruck because I enjoy driving the Cybertruck as well. Randy says, why is Robin selling out? Probably because she's got plenty of money and it doesn't matter if she sells it at $350 or $250. Let's see here. Karanu says Kevin must be short Tesla stock. That's not true. I don't have any Tesla shorts. There's always somebody in the comments that say, yeah, well, I'm a cynic, so yeah. Let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Ross Gerber for CEO. There you go. Maybe this is why board members sold so much stocks. Who knows? Somebody else says, Friday jobs report is coming. That's true. Friday jobs report should be interesting. We never know if ADP is actually going to give us a good guide of an indicator. Today was a very interesting day for the ADP report. Meet Kevin for CEO of Tesla equals moon. Well, I mean, I could just tell you, if I was the CEO of Tesla, my biggest motivation would be trying to get as many FSD miles under the sun to just perfect a Robotaxi platform. Even if that meant, upgrading other people's hardware in their cars to hardware 5, let's say, I want the neural nets to have as much fresh data as possible, because there's so much of the Tesla valuation is focused on Robotaxi and in the future Optimus with perfecting those neural nets as well. So I think you can achieve that with not only certainly a Model 2 would be a fantastic choice. Maybe even also a larger like Model X would be nice as well. Just because when you have a larger family, it's very difficult to fit a stroller in the back and actually use the 7-seat version. So like it doesn't necessarily have to be the Robo van that they showed, but even like a mommy style van that maybe has 8 seats and more room. Like there are plenty of platforms I think you could really take advantage of and just expand how great Teslas are, and just be that Toyota while at the same time being all in on Robotaxi. Like you could do both, right? But those are just my opinions, right? I'm not applying for the job. I'm the CEO of House Hack. Yeah, but so I just sort of give that info there. So let's see here. What else? Somebody's team reputation says, is it bad to have 50% of my portfolio in Tesla? Well, I mean, it really depends what your net worth is, right? So, and like what your personal needs are. If you have a net worth of $50 million and 50% of your net worth is in Tesla, even if it goes to zero, you still have another $25 million. You're fine, right? And then if you're, on the flip side, if you're, 20 years old and your net worth is $50,000 and $25,000 in Tesla, is your life really going to change if you don't have that 25K? Well, probably not, because it's, relatively unfortunately just the smaller side in that example. And you could probably just with, focusing on your career, make substantially more money. So it really comes down to where your livelihood is, especially if you have like margin debt against your Tesla, right? This would be very dangerous. So these are all things to evaluate. Madala says, Kevin is completely unaware of the coming depression. I feel like people who watch my channel would heavily disagree with you. Let's see here. Scrolling up. If Toyota began selling with Tesla's hardware, maybe we could get there slightly faster. Yeah, but I think one of the selling points of Tesla you have to remember is their ability to manufacture vehicles in a cost competitive manner. I actually think that's a big benefit that Tesla has. So I think that's a big win right there for Tesla, and they should really milk that advantage. So let's see here. Did you hear about Walmart putting chargers in their parking lots? Do you think that will moon EV sales? I don't think it's going to moon EV sales, but look, I mean, businesses install chargers often for free because the chargers make money, right? So like if you're a charging company, you could go to Walmart and be like, yo, you mind if we throw in chargers for free in your lots? Walmart's like, yeah, I don't care. Maybe they even take a share of the revenue, right? So it certainly won't hurt and it could help. So there's a little downside for Walmart, but I don't know that moves the needle really on people wanting electric vehicles. Yeah, that's worth noting. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you end up getting like a fake news tweet or something from Elon, and I think that's you should be prepared for that. No, I have not been bearish since 2022. In fact, if you've actually watched me, you've known that I've believed in 22 in the Nike swoosh recovery. And I was very bullish at the end of 2022, 2023, and most of 2024. It wasn't until mid to late July. So I guess you could say that second half of 2024 that I became bearish, mostly because the conditions for us walking into a recession were very prominent. And obviously they've worsened more recently. So I suspect there's a high likelihood of a recession over the next 12 months. And so, we even at House Hack, one of the things we were talking about, obviously this isn't a guarantee, but we were saying, good thing we didn't IPO January of 2025 because we don't want to, IPO in this sort of environment. But we might, this is just an idea, okay, no guarantees. But part of us suggests maybe targeting an IPO around January of 2027 maybe could be really interesting, because we think you could kind of catch like the outside ride, like the start of the economic recovery. So that's when in 2027, hopefully we have, clear tax policy in place, all the trade war drama has settled and the GDP has settled and rates are down and maybe we're back to growth. 2027 could be really interesting. But I've always been saying 2028 to 2030. So those are some just things we're talking about when it comes to the economy right now. So yeah, somebody here says my context space: the richest man in the world doesn't care. He's set for a few lifetimes in the lack of luxury. That's interesting. Let's see here. Oh, $10. Do you think Tesla will have permanent brand damage because the company has become politicized? Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean you can't offset that damage with a good product. And this is why I think it's so valuable to really look into not only being cost competitive, trying to compete on a large scale with the likes of Toyota, trying to lower the cost of full self-driving to getting more people using FSD as a product, but also expanding your audience. Frankly, I think, just as an example, if they had a mommy van with a sliding door for moms, look, it's one thing if you have two kids, mommy, daddy in the front and two kids in the back, fine, 5-seater, fine, normal. But as soon as you have that third kid, it's really challenging to use a 7-seat Tesla. It's too small. And the 5 seats are obviously too small because you just can't get those 3 car seats in there. So I think you're really losing an audience there, or your families that, maybe have 2 kids and they want a third child that they can pick up, or a friend or whatever, or a family member, and, whatever, a grandparent. And so I think you can, over time, with really good leadership, you could actually solve this brand damage problem by just focusing on good products and good services, good solar panels, good solar home battery, the home batteries, new models of vehicles, cheaper vehicles, lower monthly payments, more variety to choose from. This is what people want. It's America after all. And so, yeah, of course, there's going to be brand damage in the near term. But once we get through this economic malaise, whatever it ends up being, recession, depression, soft landing, nobody knows, okay? But once we get through this, come 2027, I think Tesla will be over this brand damage, and hopefully they'll be focused on, their core mission, which is, again, just high quality products and services, and providing those to customers at a really competitive price. And if they could do that, I think that's what you need a focused CEO for. If you could accomplish that, then the brand damage will be a flash in the pan, and it'll go away. I think we're probably close to peak brand damage at this point, and with Elon even walking away, you'll start kind of seeing that brand damage fade. That's my take. So yeah, all right, perfect. Somebody else here, Steak from Jake, nice name, says, why are futures markets roaring tonight? Well, probably because Meta and Microsoft showed you that they're able to grow cloud and advertising revenues, much like Google forecast, right? Like Google told you this. But this is Q1. So it's really going to be interesting to see how our next quarters evolve. So we'll see. But anyway, hey, thanks everyone. You're basically the Elon of House. I hope that's I hope you mean like the good part of Elon. But anyway, appreciate y'all being here on this sort of last minute evening live stream here. And I wish y'all the best out there. I hope you make lots of money. And hey, if you want, consider investing in House Act, diversify a little bit of your portfolio. And who knows, that way, if, I'm just saying, if we could pull off some really awesome 5x, 10x, 20x, whatever we can pull up, at least you got some VC diversification, American real estate, and we're doing some really incredible things, and we've got some exciting, even fintech tricks up our sleeves, so we're excited to roadmap those out over time. Anyway, thanks for being here, folks. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Good luck.